Happened around 7 this evening at the Venco True Hardware store in Jackson Township. At this hour, it's not known how much money was stolen. We will have more on this story tomorrow on Action News. Police in Mifflin County tonight say they have identified a suspect in connection with a rash of arson fires this past weekend. The spree began just before midnight Saturday in Belleville. Police say an arsonist burned down 6 Amish barns within 2 hours, killing 177 head of livestock and crippling a farming community on the eve of a planting season. 24 fire companies from 4 counties had to be called in to fight the blazes. Although police say they have identified a suspect in the case, they have not made an arrest.
Xander Sports. And with the news, here's Craig Demchak.
Good evening, everyone. It's Action News for Wednesday, March 18th. I'm David Venable. Some state law throughout much of the region. PennDOT crews are out in full force, and they tell us plows and salt trucks will stay on the roads tonight and into the morning hours. Now for the latest, vindicated in a 1989 accident in which a cargo door ripped away from a jetliner in flight. Now that the door has been recovered from the ocean floor, the National Transportation Safety Board blames an electrical problem.
We'd like to play that.
Think what time?
Kevin Holland and his father were on their way to meet Kevin's wife and little boy at the carousel.
It's a little bit too high.
It was still light. My son probably wasn't ready to leave yet.
The car stopped right before it would catch hold onto the chain that would take it up. He must have tugged maybe 5, 6, 7 times on the car itself.
I heard a couple, if not 3, screams. And when I heard my baby, I started to pick up the pace a little bit. When I rounded the bend, something was not right. That's when I saw his leg move.
Okay, no, we're going to get him down, okay? Okay, son, listen to me now. We're going to try to get you down, okay?
I saw the ground, and it was covered in blood. I knew that he could bleed to death, but I couldn't get him off the car.
Sir, I'm going to need your help. We can get him down, all right?
He was so tense, he was wrapped around it. So I kind of started directing people what to do. I guess I learned that from being an air traffic controller.
You have to let go, okay? What I'm going to press in. When I press and say, okay, you let go. Okay, because I'm going to have you, all right? You ready? Okay. I got you. Now. There you go. Let's bring it back here. I got you now. Okay, I know what it hurts.
What was left of his leg was next to his hip. I couldn't afford to have him see that, because if he saw that, I figured that he wasn't going to be as calm as he was anymore.
Now look, I want you to look right here, okay? Just look at me for a second, all right? You're going to be okay. Okay. All right. Listen, I need some ice, I need some water, I need blankets, anything. And everybody else, just calm down, okay?
I noticed that there was some blood still coming out rapidly. I learned through health class, clear back in high school, that we have lymph nodes in our body. And if you push on a lymph node, it'll cut off the circulation of the blood to other parts of your body. There's 2 under your armpits, there's 2 in your legs, and I think there's 3 other ones.
Hey, buddy, I'm going to press a little bit, okay?
I pushed as hard as I could on what was left of his leg.
All right, okay.
I was asking him questions to make sure that he was coherent.
Okay. You're a junior.
Senior.
Senior?
We spent a lifetime in about 20 minutes.
Park paramedic Nancy Fulton was the first rescue worker on the scene.
As I scanned on down his leg, the foot is intact, but the area between the foot and the knee, there is nothing.
Be advised, need you to expedite at this time. We have a 17-year-old.
I had a young kid who basically was bleeding to death, but I saw bystanders doing perfect things. I kept asking all of them, are you okay with what you're doing and what you're seeing? I asked them that a couple of times. They all would tell me yes.
Hold hand, okay? You ready?
Okay.
I sat next to his shoulders and held his hand. I wouldn't want somebody to turn their back on my child. So I couldn't do it to him.
What do you like to do?
Electronics.
Electronics?
Yeah.
We just talked a little bit more, and I was okay until he asked me, am I going to lose my leg?
A second, you just hold on, okay?
That was kind of tough, because I said, no, you're going to be fine. You're going to be all right. And I had to kind of like lie to him. And that was tough for me to do because I'm not used to doing that to people.
Within 10 minutes of the accident, paramedic Dave Cooper and his partner arrived.
This guy was white. He was wet. He was pasty. His blood pressure could have bottomed out at any time. Whether he was going to live or die, I couldn't tell.
It's okay. Let's get another blood pressure here. No, okay, there, squeeze. If it hurts, just squeeze, okay? You can't hurt me. Remember that.
That was our little contact. And I was still holding Chris's hand even after he got onto the board, I believe.
Okay.
And I said, you're going to have to go now. And he said, okay. I said, I'll see you later.
Everybody take it easy now, okay?
I was walking out. I looked at my wife, and she looked at me. And I said, that boy's going to lose his leg. That's when it really sunk in. And I kind of gathered myself a little bit. And I said, he could die. I don't think I cried quite so hard in a long, long time. And I put my arm around my dad because I needed help getting out of the park.
He's here. Okay. Easy, easy, guys, easy. Big turn here, all right.
By the time Chris arrived at Mercy Hospital, his blood pressure was dangerously low. The emergency physician, Pradip Swain, took charge of his care.
We immediately poured blood into his system, and all of a sudden I found that the blood dripping on my pants. It is coming through the mass trousers. So immediately I said, get me hemostat, I have to clamp that artery. And all of a sudden, he just bottomed out.
Chris, can you feel I'm touching you?
I think he's going to die. My God, he has got 60 years of life in front of him.
Chris's parents, Kurt and Bonnie Whitfield, had been at a family birthday party when they received a call from the hospital.
They knew whatever the activity was going on was serious. I saw his one sneaker on the floor. He was covered up. And he just said he had a bad injury to his leg.
The helicopter came in. He's going to the trauma center in Johnstown. The parents are here. Probably they'll never see him again. I said, take only 1 second. Hold the hand, give him a hug, give him a kiss.
I'm not real religious, but I believe in God. I asked him, he's 17. Give him a chance. If you give him his leg back, he can have my life.
Chris was transported to the trauma unit of Kanima Valley Memorial Hospital, 40 miles away. But there was nothing doctors there could do to save his leg.
I had a tough time. I know whenever he was born, when all the kids were born, any mother counts the baby's toes, counts the baby's fingers. But I would rather deal with whatever we have to deal with, with this like being amputated, than to have been making funeral arrangements.
I wanted to see Chris really bad, but it took 2.5 to 3 days to find out what had happened. It was kind of a mix of emotions a little bit. I wasn't sure if I really belonged. I wasn't family, but I wanted to know things. Now, there's nobody else in the hallway but me and Chris. So I walked over to him. I looked at him. I said, you don't remember me, do you? And he started to cry. He looked at me and he said, you saved my life, didn't you? And it was kind of like that was the recognition thing. And he squeezed my hand. And I said, no, I was just there.
The doctors and the paramedics did a great job, but I wouldn't have made it that far if it wasn't for Kevin.
I think if you're doing like 20 here, you could increase the weight a little.
8 months later, Chris is adjusting to the use of an artificial limb.
I had met a guy who has a prosthesis. He had told me to wear a prosthesis is no different than wearing a pair of glasses. I'd still do the things I used to.
There were friends that came from school. They were afraid to go in and see him. They didn't know how to cheer him up. And I told him, he'll cheer you up. He'll ease you.
I remember you well. How you doing, buddy?
An investigation conducted by state and federal agencies determined the Lakemont Park kiddie coaster to be safe.
I'll get up and dance at my prom. I've danced with my girlfriend before since my accident. Looks funny, but she doesn't feel different towards me. I'm still me.
Kick it. Ready?
If this was the only way to be his friend, I'd rather not know him. But it allowed us the opportunity to become friends. And what we went through is what has bonded us.
No one knows at what moment you step onto somebody's life like this. To see a mangled foot and to put pressure on that, that takes a hell of a courage to do that. They are the greatest heroes than sending someone to space, you know.
Next.
They'll be the first person to help anybody out.
Which may be why help came to him.
When he pulls through, I would love to meet him. And like I said, I have a daughter. He has a daughter, same age, and, maybe they can, play together one day.
Out of the flames, out of the savagery, a lesson.
People don't learn to live together, then we're all doomed.
Cindy Kennard, CBS News, Los Angeles.
That's the news. Tomorrow.
Car crash in Huntington County. Police say the accident happened shortly before 4 this afternoon on State Route 26 in Oneida Township. 64-year-old Claire Groves of Huntington was killed after reportedly losing control of her car, hitting a second vehicle head-on. The driver of the second car, 18-year-old Ronald Rupert of Huntington, was pronounced dead at the scene.
A bear cub was seen shortly before 4 this afternoon in the area of Pleasant Valley and 17th Street. Nobody was hurt, and authorities were finally able to chase the cub back into the woods across Pleasant Valley Boulevard. Just a little bit of excitement in that Altoona neighborhood today.
Casey joins us now with May 20th. Craig?
Yes, it is. Okay, thanks, Wendy. Johnstown postal workers had to be evacuated from their family. The association's other ambulance was out on a run at the time and was not involved. There were no injuries reported.
Let's go to upstate New York. In Albany, some lovers of the popular snack found the tail of a rodent inside a Pop-Tart. Rodent hairs were found in others in the area. It's not certain how they got in there, but it's prompted the company to issue a recall on the snack near Albany. Well, an even more horrifying discovery, finger in her toast. Collins says she was emotionally, even physically injured by the discovery. A spokesperson for Wonder says there hasn't been an accident involving a finger in a year.
Well, these stories are ahead on Channel 11. Sunday, July 12th. Final preparation.
19-year-old Stacy Smith of Shellsburg and 26-year-old Barry Mock of Alum Bank are listed in critical condition. 22-year-old Thomas Stosk of Alum Bank is in serious condition, and Michael Dull, also of Alum Bank, is listed as satisfactory. Witnesses say the plane tried to land at the Bedford County Airport. They say it touched down, lifted off again, circled to make another approach, but didn't make it.
We looked up and saw the plane dip its wing once right over the pool, skimmed the top of the tree, and went straight down, hit right into the ground.
She was yelling for somebody to get an ambulance, and we got some towels and we went running up trying to help out as best we could, but everybody just kept back because we did smell airplane fuel and we thought there's a possibility it could explode.
Another employee said the motel was almost full, but no one on the ground was injured. Sheldon Benton's ambulance crew arrived at the Best Western shortly after the crash.
When we got on scene, we found the airplane laying on the roof. Part of the fuselage was broken in half. There was debris strung from just up the hill here down almost to the tree line.
Authorities aren't releasing any more information, including the cause of the crash, until the FAA completes its investigation. Doug Petcash, News Center 6, Bedford Township.
This morning, a car accident happened along State Route 3012 in Juniata Township. According to police, 40-year-old George Samayak of Summerhill, Cambria County, died in the car accident after he lost control of his car and struck a utility pole. A passenger in the car, Joseph Barr of Evansburg, is in fair condition tonight at Conemaugh Hospital. Police say Samayak was brought.
The innocence of the old-time barbershop, where the community comes to gossip, where Floyd fills a void. But in Phoenix, Arizona, there's one beauty parlor that's the talk of the town, and it's open all right in more ways than one.
Welcome to Fantasy's Hair Salon. We've been expecting you. Just sit right down here. I'll take care of you.
Indeed. Pull up a chair and let your hair down. This is Fantasy's hair salon, where the staff sheds their smocks and their customers work up a lather.
Does that feel good?
Oh, yeah.
In here, they cut your hair in their underwear, barbers and bustiers. It's just like any other styling shop except for the uniform, or lack thereof. A harem barum.
I'm not undressing, I'm not getting sexual. It's just a haircut in lingerie.
So what kind of joint is this?
It was a great joint.
Well, Joe Albanese here says he was looking for a nice family business to invest in. Wonder what the holidays are like at his place. Anyway, now he says he's making a fortune, selling styles and smiles, and is giving new meaning to the term, take a little off the top.
At first, we were going topless, but then we decided to go with class, and that's what we did.
It's always nice to have class.
You bet.
Well, you've got to admit, they've got style. Only some here in Phoenix in the beauty business say they're a cut below and have tangled with them since day one.
It's a profession. We work hard at it.
Elizabeth Gowan runs a more traditional styling shop across town. Here, the staff keep their clothes on. And she views Joe's buxom barbers with sheer disgust.
They have, like, these girls walking around, you know, half naked, doing people's hair, makes it emphasizes the stereotype that we're just bimbos. Keep it professional.
Just because we're wearing something different, I guess, doesn't mean we can't do the same job as anybody wearing clothes.
The name of the game is having a little niche. And we found the niche.
Joe points out that all his workers are licensed beauticians and quite at home with either a scissor or a garter in their hand. The clientele, mostly professionals, executives.
It's my first time, so I'll have to see how good a job you do on the haircut, but the rest of the scenery seems to be okay.
And in here, you don't need a little thing like hair to get in the way of a visit.
You should be ashamed of yourself, Wade.
What you need is a little body.
Next.
Joe says he wants to franchise his fantasy salon, and he may be bringing a Barbarella to a neighborhood near you. Now,
on the road, in repair garages, and watch out, getting sold in car dealerships. Steve Wilson reports on lemons that are being presented as sweet deals.
This is more of Gus Paulus than most folks ever get to see. He's the Salt Lake City car dealer who shows just the top of his head on his TV commercials. The one who claims, "In Gus we trust," is more than just a catchy sales slogan.
Sir, I don't want the camera in here, please.
So what's got Gus so testy? Questions about whether he's been using his used car lot to unload some late model lemons without ever telling his customers the truth about those cars. These days, in most states, when car dealers sell a new car that turns out to be a lemon, the car maker has to buy it back. A big victory for consumer advocates like Clarence Ditlow, right?
But what we didn't realize is we were creating another problem downstream when the bought-back lemons were being foisted off on unsuspecting consumers.
And that's exactly what happened to Paula Facer when she bought her Chevy Spectrum from Gus Paulus. Her car seemed like a great deal, but she didn't know that Rod and Julie Olson were the original owners of this car, and it gave them nothing but headaches. And I take it for you, it was more than just aggravation.
It was life-threatening for me and my children to have it die out in the middle of an intersection. We gave them 5, 6 chances to fix it. They hadn't fixed it, so we figured we weren't going to mess with it anymore.
They got on the phone to state officials who explained Washington State's strong lemon law. Then they proved in arbitration the car was clearly a lemon and forced GM to buy it back. And Rod says the day he turned it back to the General Motors man.
I said, well, what do you do with this car now? I said, do you fix it and put a lemon law sticker on it and resell it? He said, no. He said, we take it to Utah and we fix it there and then we sell it there. I said, we don't need a lemon law sticker down there.
So they knew the way to get around the law was to get out of the state where the law was.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he was going to do with it.
Did GM's man really say that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm working now.
You used to be with General Motors. I want to ask you about some lemons. We found Joe Leonard retired from GM and now working at a Chevy dealership.
Specifically, what I'm interested in is the 87 Spectrum. And the reason I'm asking you, Joe, is they said... Joe.
But as you can clearly see here...
Oh, Joe.
We didn't find him willing to face this issue.
What is happening is the manufacturers are faced with 50,000 lemons coming back to them every year. And they don't know exactly how best to get rid of them. They want to sell them back to the consumer and get their money out of it. And the system that they've set up doesn't safeguard the consumer. It's aimed at maximizing the amount of money that they get on the resale. And the way to maximize the amount of money in the resale is not to tell the next purchaser that it was a lemon.
Which brings us right back to our hidden camera on Gus Paulus, who says, sure, GM has been known to dump its lemons this way.
If the state of Washington passed a law that said that they couldn't be sold in the state of Washington and people in Utah were buying them, they'd ship everything from Washington to Utah and let these guys buy them. Well, hell, we were getting behind the 8 ball on these. Our service departments were so busy trying to get the problems taken care of on some of these units, and we were losing our good customer base because of it, that we refused to do it.
But before you believe the worst about America's biggest automaker, you should know that much of what Gus Paulus told us just doesn't check out. For instance, he said when GM has to buy back a car, then sells it to a dealer.
It has a disclosure on the window that it's been bought back, but we don't know what the reasoning is. Was it a repo? Was it somebody that couldn't pay for it? What was it?
GM says, and other dealers agree, anybody who can read can clearly see the history of every buyback. But when we brought Paula along to talk to Gus, Gus tried to blame it all on some middleman.
I think it was the buyer that put one over on us on a couple of these, okay? Just between you and I.
He says maybe an independent buyer might have known Paula's car was a lemon, but kept it a secret from everybody here at the dealership. But even so, Paula would not have been hurt because...
The letter will come directly from General Motors Corporation to the consumer as soon as he buys one of those units, telling him that it has been a buyback unit and what the problem has been with it and why it was bought back.
Nonsense, says GM. The dealer gets all that information at the auction house, along with a factory warranty he's supposed to give to whoever buys the car. But what did Paula get from Gus's salesman here who sold her car?
Nothing. No warranty at all.
So, if GM was giving a free warranty, why wouldn't the salesman pass it on to Paula? Well, maybe because they wanted her to pay for a warranty.
I don't remember the price of it, but I know it was too high that we couldn't pay for it.
So whatever happened to that free warranty, Gus had it all along, right there in his drawer, with all the disclosure information he claimed he didn't know about. So Paula wants to know, why would any dealer do business this way?
I'm not trying to hurt this young lady.
I understand.
She lives right in my city. I mean, all I have to stand on is my reputation.
And we have seen cases of recycled lemons in virtually every state. And even in some states like New York, we've seen a mass practice by Chrysler, which resulted in a lawsuit by the Attorney General on over 100 vehicles being recycled in this fashion. So this is not an isolated event. It's a common occurrence.
You know, maybe you could avoid problems like that if you'd spend more money, buy a more expensive car, maybe something like this $40,000 Maserati convertible.
We can push it out, and I can jump start it down the hill, and then we'll pull it out.
That's the way it is with Drew Springer's bi-turbo convertible. He's got to have a friend who doesn't mind pushing the thing when the battery runs down from sitting in the repair shop months at a time. Of course, once he jumps it, it will run, for a while anyway.
I called Maserati. I was very upset. I gave them the history of the car, and...
You gave them the vehicle ID number?
Oh, yes.
They knew exactly which car you were talking about?
They pulled it up, knew exactly about the car.
Turns out the people at Maserati headquarters knew lots more about Drew's car than he did. He bought the car from a Dallas dealer who said it had been a demo, but when it continuously needed expensive repairs and the dealer was out of business, Springer asked Maserati to buy it back. They refused. Why? Because Maserati knew what he's just about to find out. He bought a $40,000 lemon.
They've already taken this car back. This car's a lemon from the state of Washington.
That's right. Nobody ever told Drew Springer, but after Maserati was forced to buy it back from a customer in Washington State, they sold it to a dealer in Texas, where Springer says a salesman lied to unload it there. Of course, Maserati knew the truth, but when Springer called here...
You would not tell him?
No.
You would assume he knew?
Yes.
And if he didn't, would that be just as well?
Well, we would assume he knew, period.
And if he didn't, that'd be okay with you?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. He should know.
Sooner or later, you're going to end up with a lemon. And the lemon laws were designed to protect the rich and the poor, and no one the Hyundai owner or the Mercedes owner should have to go through that aggravation, and if they do, they ought to get their money back, and the next purchaser ought to be told about it.
A couple of footnotes to Steve's report. GM has now offered Paula the warranty she never got, but Paula wants them to take the car back. As for Drew, Maserati has promised to try to fix his car. Coming next, Reg Denny fights back.
Section of Route 36 and Club. Both reportedly are in critical condition. No other information is being released at this time. And this three-car accident in Altoona just before 10 tonight has left at least one person seriously hurt. The accident happened at the corner of Logan Boulevard and 6th Avenue. An Action News crew reports one person was trapped in the wreckage. We'll have more on these accidents tomorrow on the Action News Morning Edition.
Here's on Route 18 just before noon. That's when a car driven by 75-year-old Mabel Campbell of New Freeport.
Hotel in Beaverdale escaped the flames that engulfed the building late this afternoon. But 3-year-old Justin Wilson was trapped in a second-floor bedroom. Firefighters were able to reach the boy. He was flown to Conemaugh Hospital by MedStar, but it was too late. He died of smoke inhalation. Firefighters say the blaze began on the second floor of the building, although they don't know what sparked the fire yet.
Officials of an Indian
Beaverdale. Firefighters say Justin Wilson of Beaverdale died after being trapped in the blaze at Wilson's Hotel on Cameron Street. The hotel is owned by the boy's grandmother, and he was visiting her at the time of the fire. The boy was life-flighted to Conemaugh Hospital in Johnstown, where he was pronounced dead from smoke inhalation. The blaze broke out at about 1 p.m. and no one else was injured. The cause of that fire is still under investigation. Damage is estimated at about $75,000. In Bedford County, a car pedestrian accident involving a young boy driving north on Route 26 when she lost control of her car on the wet roadway. The car struck 11-year-old Aaron Nelson of Hopewell, who was waiting at his bus stop, and then continued forward, hitting a utility pole. Nelson only suffered minor injuries. He's in satisfactory condition tonight at Bedford Hospital. Smith, however, had to be flown to Conemaugh Hospital in Johnstown for her injuries. She's in critical condition this evening. Meanwhile, an Alto fainted while driving along 12th Avenue and crashed his van into the side of the Penn Alto Hotel. Benning has been admitted to Altoona Hospital.
Merging is a good idea for many districts, but he's not in favor of the state providing any incentive to do so.
I think that people have to be persuaded to engage in this kind of thing.
Were made with side saddle gas tanks mounted outside the frame of the truck. In 1988, the company switched to a single tank mounted inside. A 1978 document released this week shows GM did question the safety of the tanks, stating about 19% of the trucks had, quote, high fuel tank leakage potential for outboard side located tanks. And a 1983 document states the dual tanks would be discontinued, a move that would, quote, reduce the exposure of fuel system components in accident situations. Critics say this proves GM knew the tanks were like fire bombs and did nothing about it.
Center for Auto Safety's analysis claims that over 300 people have died, and there have been over 100 lawsuits involving these vehicles.
The automaker has reportedly paid out millions in damage settlements. That's no comfort to victims like Mike McGarrity, who lost his best friend when his GM pickup burst into flames.
From what we were told was that they would save more money by paying off lawsuits than they would by solving the problem.
6 million GM trucks with dual tanks are still on the road. Next month, the government will decide if they should be recalled. If they are, it will be a first for a vehicle that's passed all federal crash tests. And that is expected to set off fierce debate on the standards now used to make sure cars in America are
Cambria County leaves 2 people dead and a third in the hospital with serious injuries. Authorities say alcohol was a contributing factor in last night's accident. Good evening, everybody. Cambria County Coroner John Barron says the 2 victims burned to death after the car burst into flames. The crash happened along Route 869 in Beaverdale when the car went out of control and flipped into a cement culvert. Killed were 34-year-old Richard Weary of Beaverdale and 25-year-old Michelle Schindel of Winburn. Schindel's sister, 22-year-old Erica Clark of Holsopple, is in critical condition tonight at a Pittsburgh hospital. She was either ejected from the car or managed to get out herself. The fire started on impact, trapping the victims inside. Barron says both had blood alcohol levels above the legal limit. And in State College, a pedestrian...
New questions are being raised about their use, like who pays to replace the bag if it's deployed, and do insurance companies offer a discount if your car is equipped with the device? Reporter Barbara Petito has some answers.
Second to the price, the trend among new car dealers is to sell you more on safety than comfort.
They will come.
Today's consumer, it seems, is more interested in anti-lock brakes and airbags than leather interior or a luxury package. Ron Mandacek bought his car because of the driver's side airbag, and last July he was glad he had it.
When I hit him, the airbag just opened up and it came straight out at me.
With the airbag, Ron's 45-mile-an-hour collision resulted in a few minor injuries.
What happened to me, it's worth it, because I just right here, my arm got all red and my thumb was really bad. I think my thumb got hit by the airbag, it came out.
They are designed to actuate when the equivalent of a 25-mile-an-hour frontal impact occurs into an immovable object.
Once the airbag is deployed, the steering wheel unit where it's contained must be replaced. Including labor, the cost of reloading an airbag could come to more than $1,000, especially if there's damage to the sensors or onboard computer which detonates the device. Service shops like this one must restore the unit as part of the accident repairs.
The car is certified as a component of the car, so yes, it should be replaced.
From the insurance industry point of view, it's mandatory that we replace the airbag according to manufacturer specification.
Insurance companies see this expense as minor in comparison to the medical expenses that could have occurred without an airbag.
That's your greatest injury factor, is when someone hits the windshield with their face. And the facial and head injuries that end up as a result of a front-end collision become very, very high. The medical costs are extremely high.
Some policyholders can even receive discounts of 15 to 40% if their car has a passive restraint system. Barbara Petito, TV 10, Action News.
By 1998, airbags will be required in all new cars.
Work and a movie poster of a man pointing a gun. Police say the tipster did the right thing by calling them.
A gray and sometimes snowy day across the
Christmas sale last Saturday. He worked there. He played Santa and posed for pictures with local children. Unfortunately, he apparently took off with the bag of goodies. The Salvation Army believes DeFoot stole $4,000 in cash and checks netted in that day's sales. The money was slated for the rehabilitation of men with drug and alcohol problems. DeFoot reportedly had been a recipient of the Army services before he disappeared.
From Keystone Country's premier broadcast news organization, this is Action News.
Hello, it's the Action News Night Beat for Friday, January 22nd. I'm Craig Demchek.
And I'm Caroline Sarnoff. A Cambria County school bus driver charged with molesting children.
And explosions and fire ripped through a McKean County factory.
But the big story on Action News, who turned out the lights?
Well, turns out Mother Nature did. At least that's what Penelec believes. More than 500 Penelec customers across South Altoona, including WTAJ, lost power just after 6 tonight. Penelec General Supervisor Joe Miller says ice from yesterday's storm may have done the damage, shorting out a substation.
We had a lightning arrestor go bad here at the Hydrocon sub, which feeds TAJ, Mercy Hospital, Fry Metals, and because the lightning arrestor went bad on us, that took the substation out.
All power now has been restored. No serious problems are reported as a result of that blackout earlier tonight. A Cambria County school bus driver is behind bars tonight, accused of molesting 3 young girls. Police say 46-year-old Walter McConnell Jr. of Evansburg fondled the 3 girls ages 11, 12, and 13. The incidents allegedly happened in the parking lot of the Carrolltown Elementary School in Carrolltown. McConnell, also known as Butch the bus driver, is facing 20 counts of harassment and indecent assault involving the 11-year-old, 40 counts with the other 2 girls. McConnell is behind bars on $200,000 bond.
Before reaching the high, and started around 10 p.m. and ended at 5 this morning with no injuries, and the armed suspect taken into custody after firing 3 shots. A state police special forces unit was called to the scene to assist. Crescent Police were releasing no details tonight and say information on the incident will be made available tomorrow. A chain reaction accident on the Pennsylvania Turnpike near Somerset sends 5 people to the hospital. State police say 4 cars and 2 tractor trailers were involved, and it happened when one of the trucks lost its brakes in the passing lane about 8 miles east of Somerset. One person has been admitted to Somerset Hospital and another may be. A nursing supervisor says their injuries do not appear to be serious. That crash created a traffic jam that went for miles.
released from the Cambria County Prison yesterday after posting his $200,000 bond. 46-year-old Walter McConnell Jr. of Evansburg, a school bus driver for Faribault Bus Lines, was arraigned Friday evening by District Justice on 100 counts of indecent assault, 100 counts of harassment, and 2 counts each of terroristic threats and intimidation of a witness. The preliminary hearing is set for January 29th. A 2-vehicle accident today in Clearfield County sent 2 people to the Phillipsburg Hospital. This accident happened on Route 53 in Decatur Township, 2 miles north of Osceola Mills, around 3 this afternoon. Don Danko of Osceola Mills was reportedly attempting to pass another vehicle when his Honda Civic crossed into the path of a Ford Bronco operated by Gregory Lucas of Howard RD. Danko and a passenger in the Lucas vehicle, Tracy Bloom of Houtzdale, were taken to the Phillipsburg Hospital and treated for facial injuries and released. An accident this afternoon on Altoona sent at least 1 person to an area hospital. At around 1 o'clock, this light truck was heading north on 6th Avenue near 20th Street when it hit the porch of a house, then came to its rest on its side. Police aren't releasing any more information at this time.
Hey, everybody, let's have some fun. You only live once, but when you're dead, you're done. So let the good times roll. Let the good times roll. Don't matter if you're young or old. Let the good times roll. I found a girl who beats them all. She isn't too short and she isn't too tall. She's in the groove and right on the ball. She's sweet, petite, and gone. When I do things, I do them right. I'll never let her out of my sight. We'll climb the knot tight, tight. She's sweet, petite, and gone. Stroke it, baby, stroke it. Those other chicks leave me cold. Can't get bed wrapped the morning calico. After the baby, they fuck them all. She's sweet, petite, and gone. She's sweet. So sweet. She's sweet, petite, sweet, and gone.
Thank you, Hot Mix. The challengers are talented dancer who also happen to be boyfriend and girlfriend. From Pine Brook, New Jersey, Litchfield, Ohio, welcome Jim and Jen.
On the other side of the earth, there's a place where life still has worth. I will take you. I'll go with you. You won't believe all the things you'll see. I know, 'cause you'll see them all with me. If we're together, that's when we'll hear it again. Song played on a solo saxophone. Sound, a lonely sound, a cry that tells us love goes on and on. Played on a solo saxophone. It's telling me to hold you tight and dance like it's the last night of the
Thank you, Jim and Jen. A great way to start championship battle. Let's put our panel of entertainment experts to work. Champion Hot Mix earns 3 3/4 stars. Challengers Jim and Jen receive 3 1/4 stars. Hot Mix.
30 officers surrounded a home on Laurel Avenue after a man inside fired 6 shots and chased his family out of the house. Police are not releasing any names at this time, but say no one was injured in the incident. A state police negotiator talked the man out of the house where they tackled him. The gunman was then taken to Conemaugh Hospital in Johnstown. Day 1 of
a man stood outside the agency's headquarters during rush hour traffic and fired into traffic. The victims were agency employees. Our Washington correspondent Skip Loescher has more.
He was trying to kill somebody.
The bus on which 28-year-old Larry Bright was riding was on a heavily traveled highway, passing the road which leads to the CIA's main gate, when a man he says had a cold stare began methodically shooting at cars.
Just a guy driving and just shooting. He was just shooting. He was just shooting. Then he just kept on shooting. He just kept shooting. Pow, 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 pow. It's hitting. Everything is like.
2 people were shot to death in their cars as they waited at a stoplight to turn into the CIA complex. Senator Bob Smith was on his way to the Capitol when it happened.
He then turned and walked between these 2 rows of cars that were lined up to go into the CIA. And coolly and methodically, with no emotion, no expression, and no words, he simply walked up to the automobiles and fired at point-blank range into the windows.
An estimated 15,000 people work in the CIA headquarters compound. One witness said the man was shooting randomly into windshields. In the chaos which followed, the gunman got away. No one but him knows whether the tragic incident had anything to do with the CIA or whether the location was mere happenstance. But when something like this happens, government workers throughout the Washington area get nervous. Even the tight security around the Capitol and at the White House probably can't prevent some deranged soul intent on violence from doing the same kind of thing which happened near the CIA. In Washington, I'm Skip Loescher for News Watch.
And also in Washington today, President Clinton met with top military advisors this afternoon, not about international problems, but over a domestic conflict, one you're hearing a lot about, gays in the military. President Clinton says that he plans to keep his promise to allow gays into the military. However, Clinton wants input on the issue from the Joint Chiefs of Staff who we met with here. The White House says that Clinton plans to end the 50-year-old ban within 1 week.
Well, it's time for another check of Sunday's Super Bowl. The Buffalo Bills continue their workouts in Southern Cal, while Dallas has set up practice sessions at UCLA. One key to this game could be experience. Mark Barger has more on that in this report.
As we hurtle headlong into Super Bowl Sunday, much is being made of the experience factor. Dallas has the league's youngest team, but Buffalo has a veteran team that's been here the last 2 years.
Do you think 0-2 is helping them? You know, I mean, I don't know.
Maybe not, but the Cowboys are handling what is for most of them their first Super Bowl experience in a very business-like fashion. They're trying not to get caught up in the trappings of what is the biggest game of the season.
By the time the game starts, they're playing a game, we're playing a game, and we've all played football games before, so I don't think experience being here is any factor to us.
Most of the Bills would probably agree with that, but they also say there's nothing like having been here before to help settle a team down. The experience factor also lends itself to a maturity factor.
Because we know what's expected of us. We know that, hey, we have to go out there and take charge of it and on offense side of the ball, have a pretty well-balanced running pass.
Even though all players look very relaxed and it appears that it's no big deal, it is. It'll have an effect on them. This all has a cumulative effect on the players. You don't know how it's going to play out on Sunday until probably Saturday night or Sunday morning.
But even with Dallas's Super Bowl inexperience, it's easy to forget that Buffalo, on their first time out, came within seconds of winning the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. In Pasadena, I'm Mark Barger for News Center 6 Sports.
The Houston Oilers are reportedly interested in hiring Buddy Ryan, among others, to run their defense. The Oilers fired defensive coordinator Jim Eddy after Houston blew that 32-point lead against Buffalo in the AFC.
But if that's what you mean, somebody should have killed that guy long ago.
It's not unusual to see a disabled actress play that same kind of character like Barbara Side on Murder, She Wrote. But Barbara is anything but run-of-the-mill. She was born with no legs and a host of other ailments. Doctors said she wouldn't live.
I was born with lots of bad problems, from not having the limbs to spina bifida, which is a very serious type of problem, to other medical conditions, and they didn't think I would pass like 2 months. Then they gave supposedly 7 months and then 7 years, and I just kept on kicking.
Barbara had a tough childhood. Abandoned by her parents, she spent her life in a series of foster homes, relying only on her strong will to keep her going.
I got in a lot of fights, lots of fights. I was not really, if somebody would pick on me or something, I would fight back.
Barbara learned to walk on artificial limbs at 19 months, and she hasn't let her disability slow her down a bit. She taught herself to play music as a child. Then after high school, she joined a theater group for the physically challenged. That led to many television parts, mostly in wheelchairs. But now she's gone on to playing roles that have nothing to do with disabilities.
What do you think? They go with the rest of me?
I faked them out. I would not tell them. I really wouldn't. If somebody doesn't notice I'm not disabled, hey, why tell them?
She uses her prosthetic legs to advantage. Varying her height is necessary for her roles.
This is shorter than the ones I have on, which makes me shorter. And the feet are also interchangeable.
I have 3 different heights, 5'2", 5'5", and 5'7". And they also come all apart. So I can interchange like feet and toes and stuff like that. So I have fun with it.
But that's not enough for Barbara. She's also gotten into stunt work on several films, like this one called Nemesis, and an upcoming film called Nights, in which she doubles for Chris Christopherson dressed up as him.
They actually put this whole mask of his face on me. And it's interesting. I look like Chris Christopherson.
29-year-old Barbara leads a relatively normal life. She loves driving her Corvette and even takes spins on her motor scooter. Neither vehicle has special hand controls. She insists on driving just like everyone else.
If somebody tells me you're not going to be able to do that, I'll do it just to prove them wrong. I will. There was a time when I was growing up where I would fall down and people would want to pick you up to help you up because supposedly you're disabled. And I would actually fall down again until I was allowed to pick myself up. I would not. I'm stubborn.
Barbara also works to give other handicapped actors a break. She's actively involved in the performing.
Doctors say not always. One Connecticut woman was seriously hurt by her car airbag. A report in the New England Journal of Medicine says a 22-year-old woman's heart chamber ruptured last September when she hit a parked car. Doctors say airbags can reach a velocity of more than 200 miles an hour, and that can be dangerous. Safety experts say the woman was partly at fault because she wasn't wearing a seat belt. Today, British police announcing arrests on the slaying of a 2-year-old boy. Now, 2 young boys are in custody, charged with the murder. Martha Teichner reports.
These enhanced surveillance camera pictures are the best images of the 2 10-year-olds charged with kidnapping and killing toddler James Bulger and trying to kidnap another child in a Liverpool shopping mall.
The family are, of course, relieved at the progress that has been made, but are still trying to come to terms with the situation. They would like to thank the police and the public for the support. They do not wish, however, to make any further statement at this time and would ask the media to respect their privacy.
It was the bizarre and terrible video record of a murder about to happen that was so compelling. Children apparently preparing to kill another child. The sight of 2-year-old Jamie, enticed by the older boys, first led, then dragged toward his death. The crime gripped Britain for more than a week. A nationwide television appeal for witnesses and information generated more than 300 calls. Some callers actually named the 2 boys accused. Found along a railroad line, Jamie Bulger had been battered hideously, then left to be run over by a train. What is apparent now is how many people saw him with his kidnappers and did nothing. The embankment next to the tracks has become a shrine. There is a memorial fund, but tributes have not eased the sense of sorrow and guilt that is being felt in Liverpool.
Terribly sad, really awful. I don't want to talk about it anyway.
Today, as the Liverpool soccer team played its match, the city's collective sadness was expressed. 36,000 fans paused to observe a minute of silence for the murdered child. Martha Teichner, CBS News, London.
Correct.
There's no doubt about that.
No doubt.
And just how long had it taken these 2 experts to find that out? It took us, from the time we walked up to Bruce's house, probably, and shook hands and walked inside and looked at the car, probably 6 minutes to figure out that it was not properly repaired. I mean, it was that quick.
Now, shouldn't the folks at Roberts Albright Pontiac have told all this to the walls? We met the family on the lot where salesman Frank Zarlingo had sworn to them that the car was one owner, mint condition.
And Frank Zarlingo is the manager.
He's the used car manager here.
Okay, let's go see if we can see Frank Zarlingo right now. That's he?
That's it.
Hey, Frank.
Mike Wallace, Frank, how are you?
Hi, Mike.
Let's see you.
Fine.
You remember the walls?
Yeah?
Was there just one previous owner? Did you tell them the truth about that?
I didn't tell him any lie.
You apparently told them there was 11,000 miles on it, one owner vehicle, mint condition, etc., etc. You know, the usual talk that you get from a used car dealer.
You know, I told him about the car, what I knew about the car.
Had he wanted to know more, he could have checked with a company called Carfax, which can provide dealers with the entire title history of a car for as little as $3 a car. The Carfax report on the Walls car clearly shows it had been declared salvage in Texas. How many cars you got out here in your used car lot?
Probably 35 or 40.
Do you know the history of any of them, or you just take them in and say, and try to sell them? How many of them maybe have been in wrecks previously? Do you have any idea?
No.
You don't bother?
You try to check them and find the ones that's been wrecked.
Well, Carfax.
We don't have Carfax.
Why don't you have Carfax? Cost money?
I don't know.
Wouldn't you think it might be sensible to get Carfax? Because that's the way to find out what the history of the car is.
I don't know.
How long have you been in the business?
About 10 years.
And you've never ordered a Carfax on any used car that you've sold off this lot?
No.
Carfax is generally offered only to car dealers, not to car buyers. And the service covers only about 1/3 of the country, which is why attorney Bernard Brown and consumer advocates are asking for national legislation requiring that the salvage designation be carried forward whenever a car is retitled.
Branding of titles is one way to make sure they know in the first place. If you put salvage on the title, that's one of the biggest things. There should be a federal law requiring
Yeah, but as sure as you put salvage on the title, that car is never going to sell.
But isn't that exactly the point?
Yeah.
That's right. It shouldn't. Most of those cars should never go back on the road. Most cars that have been totaled in a wreck can't be rebuilt at all economically to make them safe. They shouldn't ever go back on the road.
An 89 model here, up for sale. How many dollars on him?
It is at wholesale auto auctions that rebuilders often sell their cars to retail dealers.
$47.50.
One auction chain, Anglo-American, has built its own database to make sure that dealers cannot conceal a salvage title. Gary Dickinson is director of security for Anglo-American.
When a vehicle enters one of our sales, 1,000 vehicles at a time can be checked within 5 or 6 minutes. And we
Wait a minute, what?
That's right.
1,000 cars come in here for auction, let's say next Tuesday.
In one day.
Okay. And you can check on the history of those cars because of the database that you've established?
We can check on every vehicle that comes across our auction block in a matter of 4 to 6 minutes, depending on the number that we run.
Open the doors and look inside, ladies and gentlemen.
When a car with a prior salvage title is discovered, the auction announces it, ensuring that everyone involved in the transaction knows the true history of the car. But Dickinson, whose company also supports the idea of a national title law, says that his is the only auction that has such a comprehensive database. A lot of folks with salvage cars are staying away from Anglo-American to sell their cars, right?
That's right.
But they're going to find someplace to auction off their cars.
That's why the information's got to be put on the title, so that they can't do that.
Well, Bill Burton, who investigates automobile fraud for the Michigan Department of State, says his state does put it on the title. A salvage title in Michigan can never be washed clean. And the state also notifies consumers who have unknowingly bought salvaged cars. So if somebody gets a car that was branded salvage in Michigan, and that car now goes to Ohio, you somehow follow that up?
Yes.
And you let the new owner know?
Yes, we send that new owner a questionnaire asking them questions. Do they know that the vehicle was at one time a Michigan salvage car?
People must be very surprised when they get this kind of communication from the state of Michigan.
Absolutely surprised, and sometimes they're upset that that their states don't look out for consumers and check titles similar to what we do.
That would have been a big help to this couple, Steve and Ann Skelton. Steve is a student and in the Marine Corps Reserve. His wife Ann takes classes and she works part-time. They scraped together enough money for the down payment on this used Mitsubishi Eclipse. But now the car's in storage because it's had so many mechanical problems the Skeltons are afraid to drive it. So they went back to ask the dealer about it. Did you inquire about where the car had come from and what kind of shape it was in and all of that stuff?
Yes, I had asked if it had been wrecked before, and the salesperson said no, it had not been wrecked.
You asked if it had been wrecked?
Right.
And they said no?
Right.
In fact, the Skelton's car had been wrecked. It had hit a utility pole head-on. The suspension was so badly damaged it was totaled. The used car salesman hadn't bothered to tell them, so we did.
We learned a little bit about this car this morning. Turns out that the car belonged to somebody in Joliet, Illinois, a young woman who had a head-on, and this apparently is not on the history that these people told you about.
That's sure right. I mean, they didn't tell us anything about the car being wrecked or anything. We'd asked.
Why don't we now go and see if we can find the fellas with whom you dealt? Okay. Shall we?
Yes.
Okay.
We were told the salesman was no longer working at the dealership.
Yes, sir.
But we did find used car manager Jim Sanson.
Would you sell a salvage car?
Would I sell a salvage car?
That's the question.
I understand.
Would you?
Not knowingly.
Well, you know that this car that these two youngsters have, is a salvage car.
No, I wasn't aware of that, no.
Well, I'm making you aware of it.
Okay.
I pointed out he could easily have found out about the history of the car through Carfax. That's how we found out.
True, but I had no reason to do that. I didn't know...
Well, they've been coming in 2-3 times to ask you whether the car indeed had been in a wreck.
What did I tell you?
You said that you didn't know because you'd have to find out from the previous owner.
You don't have to find out from the previous owner. Carfax will tell you that. You know that. You're a professional
I understand,
used car
but
dealer.
what I'm trying to say to you is that, I mean, this happened Tuesday. It's Friday.
And I only learned about this yesterday. I'd already found out about the car. You want to look at the Carfax?
Sure.
Take a look. What does it say?
It says it has previous salvage title.
Right. That's all. I found that out in just a few minutes. You could have done the same.
True.
We also discovered that before unloading the car on the Skeltons, the dealer had tried to sell it at auction, but when it was announced as salvage, nobody wanted it. And then they brought it back here and sold it to these two young people, not telling them that it had been salvaged, though they knew it, for $11,000. That's basically what we're talking about here, right?
Yes.
And remember the dealer trying to sell us that wrecked Hyundai? Well, just as we were getting ready to leave, another salesman spotted our cameras and realized something was up. So he decided to come clean about the history of the car.
This car I saw in a junkyard once, and they fixed it all back up.
Really?
Got all new windows. And how do you get this dang thing?
And you'd let him sell it to me?
If you want to buy it, somebody sold it to us.
Can't you get it?
No, we're going right there, sir.
How'd you get it?
He's just kidding.
How did you get it? You got it out of the junkyard?
Probably.
He's just kidding you.
So intent was our salesman on closing the deal that he ignored our cameras, ignored the truth, and pressed on with his pitch.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he just said it was total.
Oh, he's just kidding you. Lord, if it was true, he'd never told you that.
You heard what he said. If it was true, he never would have told you. That's what he said. That's what he meant. But salesmen may start thinking twice about what they tell used car buyers. Some consumers who have gotten stuck with rebuilt totals have recently gone to court, and they have won big judgments against the dealers who sold them the wrecks.
$110 stories. Tens of thousands of people were suddenly trapped in the dark, searching for a way out.
I was at a desk, and I seen the flash coming towards me, and I bent down, and the desk somehow landed on top of me. So when the walls and stuff came down, came on the desk, and I just crawled for the exits.
Hours after the explosion, people were still coming out of the towers. Some had to walk down 100 flights. Others were trapped in elevators. Each had their own story of escape.
And everybody's stuck in the stairs. I mean, everybody could have died. It's another smog. You can breathe. You can breathe.
How many floors did you just come down? 105. What's it like? How long did your trip take? It took about, what, an hour and 10 minutes? It was moving at first. Stairwells filled up with smoke, no announcements. It flattened out to a hallway on 70 when probably was the scariest.
The stairway was packed. We couldn't move forward or backwards. It was full of smoke, and nobody was moving. And I know we all thought, this is it, the smoke inhalation.
In a nearby evacuation center, several survivors said they received no evacuation instructions. Emergency lighting failed, and some emergency exits wouldn't open.
I ran out to the elevator to see if they were working. They weren't working. I went around to the other companies on the floor, told them to exit because we didn't know what was happening. We tried calling the emergency number to find out what the shock was from. I guess the phones had gone dead at that point. So we tried to get on the stairwells, and the stairwells were just packed with people. And we managed to get down to, I guess, about the 3rd floor, and the door was locked. The emergency door was locked. We couldn't get out.
You've had evacuation drills, procedures?
They take you out into the lobby, they look at you, they tell you, oh, you know, in case of a fire, come out to the lobby and wait for further instructions. There are no further instructions. That thing was a total waste of time. All the procedures that they put in place were useless.
The building owner, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, denies that any exits were blocked, but does admit the emergency communications system was knocked out.
We lost the communications system in the Trade Center as a result of the explosion. That meant that we could not give the normal notices that we do through the public address system. It was unfortunate that we did not have that system, but the system was disrupted by the explosion itself.
We opened up the door, and we had opened up other elevators, and people came out to greet us, thank you, and all that. This elevator, there were 10 people laying on the floor, and none of them moved. All we heard was one woman cry.
The shape they came out in, we had to carry some of them out. We had them on.
Each and every one of them out of the elevator.
We had them on oxygen immediately, and then we gave our own Scott masks, and that's what they used to breathe. It was, I hadn't seen anything like it.
The bomb ripped through 3 floors of the parking garage, sending the ceiling of the subway station below crashing onto commuters. Tonight, the buildings are said to be structurally sound, but engineers will have to reinforce the parking garage before police can investigate the bomb crater.